Welcome back. Well, there are some clear winners and losers in the fight over South Ossetia, and the conflict has shown there could be a need for a fresh start in how the West and Russia do business. So, what are the possible options for the West in dealing with a stronger and more assertive Russia? Well, America has already cancelled some military exercises with Russia. There could also be attempts to block Russian membership of the World Trade Organization. And they could slow negotiations on a new economic partnership. And visa restrictions could also be tightened. But Western leaders will need to tread carefully in dealing with Moscow. Russia remains the main supplier of energy to Europe. It could very well leverage its vast gas and oil supplies to counter any Western attempts at imposing sanctions. But the question is, will any of these measures deter Russia from reasserting itself in the Caucasus? Well, let's rejoin our guests now. In Moscow, Dmitry Babich, a Russian political analyst. In London, Martin Macaulay, an expert on Russian affairs. And in Chicago, Kerry Kavanagh, a former US ambassador to Moscow. Dmitry Babich, in Moscow, how will this conflict affect Russian relations with the West? I mean, after the dust has settled, will it be business as usual?
Well, there was a lot of rhetoric from the West, but I don't see how the West can really influence Russia, in what way it can punish Russia. Of course, the United States can further postpone Russia's membership in WTO, but the problem is it will not damage Putin or Medvedev politically, because the attitude to WTO in Russia fluctuates from neutral to negative. WTO membership is needed by several Russian big companies, but people in general are mostly negative about it. The West can stop supplying food and medicine to Russia, but that would hit primarily the European business interests. Excluding Russia from G8 also will not deliver anything, because basically Russia's membership in G8 was largely formal. We could not stop the West from taking any unpleasant decisions. The United States or the European Union never made concessions to Russia since 1990. So these military exercises, I think that Moscow can survive without military exercises with NATO members. So I don't see how the West can influence.
OK,
really.
It's an important point you make. Let's bring in Martin Macaulay there in London. Martin Macaulay, Russia wants to be integrated into the world economic system and be taken seriously as a global diplomatic player. I mean, how much do both sides need each other, really?
Both sides need each other because there are tremendous problems facing the world, and this conflict is a tragedy because Russia and America and Europe are basically all on the same side. They share a common culture and so on, and they are confronted by great challenges from the Islamic world and also from the rise of China, the tremendous economic and political rise of China. So this is a tragedy. But Dmitry Babich is right. America and the European Union really have no levers to punish Russia. And I don't think they will try to do it, because Russia is has integrated in the global economy. Russian companies, their initial public offerings in the London Stock Exchange and so on, and these are going on. These are unlikely to be stopped. They raise capital in London. London is one of the financial capitals of the world. The financiers at this moment in time, with the economy in trouble, will not want to lose any Russian business. That'll be the argument to Prime Minister Gordon Brown. We don't want to have bad relations with Russia because we could lose money. So Russia economically is integrating. This is the paradox. Economically, Russia is integrating and becoming a world player. But from the security point of view, it's not. The United States, perhaps NATO as a whole, have neglected Russia's legitimate security rights. Then in foreign policy, there's a lot of aggravation in foreign policy and so on, and the two sides are really trading insults, and the rhetoric over the last 10 days has been rather unfortunate.
Kerry Kavanagh, in Chicago, I mean, how much leverage is there that the West can use against Russia? I mean, presumably, if too much pressure is put on Moscow, they can just turn off those gas pipes prior to winter and Europe will freeze.
That's right, but I don't think that's going to happen. And I think we've already heard the levers are not significant here. And the importance of maintaining Russia as a serious international player is key to all involved. And I don't think this is going to become a matter of money or a matter of business. It's very much a matter of politics. There's recognition in Washington, there's recognition in Brussels that we need a healthy partnership with Russia. And I think the task for today is, how do you solidify this ceasefire? How do you start advancing peace efforts in these frozen conflicts in the Caucasus and elsewhere, so you don't run the risk of another miscalculation like this? And that should be the focus, not how do you punish Russia. And I think in terms of Russia's relationship, this is going to be a challenge for all parties. Okay. It's going to be a challenge for Russia, and a challenge for the United States, and a challenge for the European Union.
Dmitry Babich in Moscow, I mean, does the West perhaps need to acknowledge that Russia did have a case? I mean, does it need to explain why the West helped Kosovo on the one hand, but questioned Russia's right to help South Ossetia on the other?
Well, that's exactly the question which is being asked in Moscow all the time. Because basically Russia copied the actions of NATO in Yugoslavia. NATO and Yugoslavia not only pushed the Yugoslav army out of Kosovo, it also tried to immobilize Milosevic's military force. In the same way, Russia not only pushed the Georgian army out of South Ossetia, but also tried to immobilize Georgian army. There was no intention to take Tbilisi. In the same way, when the West speaks about disproportionate use of force by Russia, we can remind the West of 2006, when Israel, because of 5 soldiers being taken hostage, just destroyed the infrastructure of Lebanon. In South Ossetia, more than 1,000 people were killed. So this is much more of a reason to damage Georgian infrastructure.
I want to get a final thought from Martin McCauley in London. I mean, there'll be a new US president in a few months' time. How do you see the new administration shaping relations with Moscow in light of the conflict in Georgia?
Well, you can say he's got a tabula rasa. He can start from nothing. He's not to blame for if it's Obama, if it's Barack Obama. The Democrats could say the Republicans made a mess of it. Let's start from the beginning again. Let's build a new relationship. And I think that's what Obama will do. He's in a very, very good position to go to Moscow and say, OK, let's make a fresh start. We both made mistakes in the past, but we should really work together, because there's a problem of nuclear weapons in Iran. There's a problem of nuclear bombs in North Korea. There's so many things that we can work together on. We should be doing this, and it'll benefit both of us.
Kerry Cavan in Chicago, a final thought from you. I mean, what happens now to the issue of NATO membership for the former Soviet countries like Georgia and Ukraine, for example?
I think it's very important for the alliance to highlight that no country has the ability to veto who can be a member or not. But it's equally important to approach gingerly when and how. And NATO membership is a very significant thing. Attack against one is viewed as an attack against all. And I think there has to be some reservations as we move ahead on those questions for new members as to how quickly that could occur.
OK, gentlemen, we have to leave it there. Kerry Kavanagh in Chicago, Dmitry Babich in Moscow, and Martin McCauley in London. Thank you all very much indeed for your time. And thank you so much for joining us here on this edition of Inside Story. We, of course, welcome your comments and your suggestions. Please email them to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. From the whole team here, goodbye for now.